What is up, YouTube? Just checking my hair here. It's getting really long, I know, so I gotta start maintaining it better. I'm in my tank top. It's really hot outside, and by hot I mean it's about 80 degrees, but came back from the gym, doing my glidecam workout, building my arms, just for my glidecam. Today we're gonna be doing another filmmaking Q&A. I said I would be doing one as many as I can, so that's what we'll be doing. So I'm gonna try and stick to filmmaking Q&As on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and hopefully I can even do one on Monday. I couldn't do one this week, but anyway. So this filmmaking Q&A is all about the viewers, so I want you guys to ask as many questions as possible. That way we can cover any doubts you might have, anything that you want to learn about. I'm here for you. Think of this as like a 30 minutes or an hour tutoring session, private session between me and you. Except we do have a little bit of an audience. So please go ahead, type in some of your questions that you may have. Let's answer this stuff. Let's go through it in detail, and I'll be able to help you out as best as possible. Okay? So let me go ahead, go to my YouTube page, see if we had any past questions that I can answer now, and we'll go ahead and get started, okay? So let's go ahead and see here what kind of questions we can answer. I've been getting a lot of requests about lighting, and I'm working on it, guys. It's kind of tough because I do need to ask somebody to help me with that. I need somebody to act in a scene for me, or just model in a scene for me, so I can show you how to properly light faces. I can't do that just by myself. I can't position lights, check the camera, and just do all that myself. I need to film somebody. So I'm working on getting somebody to come over and help me out with that video. Louis Film Productions, have you ever used a green screen? Yes, I own a green screen. I rarely use it because I do more on the field type of filming, but I have used a green screen. It's very, very easy. A lot of people think it's difficult using a green screen, but once you get the proper lighting down and the technique on how to shoot it, frame rate, white balance, all that type of stuff, using a green screen is fairly simple. So you know what, let's go over some tips right now on how we can film with a green screen. I can't go over too much of the lighting stuff because it's more hands-on. I need to show you how to properly light a green screen. But when you're lighting a green screen, what I like to tell a lot of people is to shoot at a high frame rate. Especially if your subject is moving around, speaking, using a lot of hand gestures. That's because when you're using a higher frame rate, your camera is taking more images. So that means you're going to see a lot less of that motion blur. Now, motion blur on a green screen is very, very bad, because when there's motion blur, there's actually a little bit of data that the camera is not reading. It's not capturing as many images as it should. So the images that it doesn't capture, you're going to start seeing a little bit of a greenish hue around the fast-moving subjects. So when you're shooting at, let's say, 60 frames per second instead of 30 frames per second, you will not be able to see any of that weird green hue that comes across fast-moving subjects. So that's an important thing to think about. When you're shooting on a green screen, at least 60 frames per second, nothing lower than that. Otherwise, you will definitely see some of that weird green hueish colors in those fast-moving subjects. Like, you see that motion blur with my hand? That motion blur would actually be all that green hue popping up, and you don't want any of that. Now, when you're lighting up a green screen, I like to focus on two different types of lights. I like to use tungsten lights, and I like to use daylight lights. So for those of you who don't know the difference between tungsten and daylight, tungsten is more of that orangish, yellowish, warm color. And daylight is more of that daylight. You know, daylight is just more of that colder, whiter look. So for the green screen itself, I like to keep it as naturally colored as possible. And the best way to do that is to use daylight lights to light up the background. So light up the green screen with some good soft boxes, maybe not even soft boxes. Use No, you could get away with Kino flows or soft boxes. any kind of light that has a large surface area that can light up the green screen. And I would recommend using daylight lights for that. That way you keep the green vibrant and vivid. That way it makes for an easier key in post-production. Then you take your tungsten lights and you focus it on the subject. So if I was a subject in front of the green screen, you want to keep my skin as natural as possible. If I blast my skin with that daylight light, I'm going to look very pale and white. It doesn't look good. It looks like a white balance issue. However, if you put on tungsten lights, shine tungsten lights on me, I'm going to seem warm. I'm going to seem more natural. My skin is going to seem warm. You always want to make people seem warmer than colder. That looks more natural, looks more human. So those are just some tips. I was actually up in San Francisco, Alameda to be exact, visiting my brother, and we were shooting some stuff in front of the green screen. And he only owns daylight lights, fluorescents. And fluorescents are not good enough to cover both the green screen and the subject. So I brought over my own Fresnel lights that are also daylight. However, I can put in orange filters so to make it give it the appearance of a tungsten light. So we use both tungsten color and daylight color to properly light up the green screen. Let me see if I can answer that question that we just got in. Hang on, guys. We got a good question, I think. Let me double check it. Sorry, give me 1 second here. The thing that I really do not understand is those people who are using green screen to apply more easily visual effects. If you don't understand what I mean, it is not a problem. My English is bad. I don't really understand what you mean by that, Louis Film Production. Maybe you can clarify a little bit better, please. Vo Images, budget ARM invest recommendation. Okay, so I recommend this company called Lang, L-A-I-N-G. Look them up on eBay, eBay or Amazon is probably the best area to look them up. They have very, very good systems, very good vest and arm systems, cheap. I think around $500-600, and phenomenal quality. I absolutely love that company. So check out Lang. I think their website is szlang.com. You can check out their types of systems on their website. I don't believe you can buy anything off their website, unfortunately, but you can buy it definitely off of Amazon or eBay. Maybe I can even send you a link. Let me go ahead and find you a link. So you want the vest and the arm system. So Lang vest support system. Let's see if they have it here. So you just want, so with the full Steadicam, it's $873. Very good price. So I'm thinking that without the actual Steadicam minus $300, it's going to be around $500-600. So let me see if I can find it here. Dun 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 dun. I can't find it without the Steadicam. You just want the vest and the support, correct? Okay. Give me a second here. No worries, Vo. I'll let you know. Come back to my other streams later on. Maybe I can find you something. But anyway, have you ever used a green screen to apply visual effects such as muzzle flash, explosion? Yes, definitely. But you don't need a green screen to apply any gun effects. You don't need a green screen for that. You don't even need a green screen for explosions. However, if I want to put myself in outer space or on the moon, obviously you're going to use a green screen. And if it's properly lit, you're going to be able to key out the green very quickly. Now here's a problem that I've seen a lot with green screen effects. I'm white, right? I seem a lot warmer than I actually am. I'm actually pretty pale. My background is Russian, and Russians are fairly pale. So my brother has this issue too. He's actually more pale than I am. And whenever we shoot in front of a green screen, you can actually see the reflection of the green on our skin. So that's a really difficult thing to manage. I'm not sure Not sure how we can come across that fix. My suggestion would be to keep the subject farther away from the green screen. Continue using that nice warm tungsten light on the subject. That way you will be able to eliminate as much of that green as possible. But yes, I've definitely had issues with the green being seen on the skin. So if that's the case, try moving your subject away from the green screen. But don't worry, eventually, hopefully this weekend I'll be able to make a tutorial video on using a green screen on a pale subject, and we will see how well we can key out the subject. And maybe we can have two subjects, one that's pale and one that's darker perhaps. I think you guys will learn a lot from that tutorial. I haven't done something like that in a while, or at all for that matter. So yeah, that's my take on green screens. I feel like software is getting better and better each time at keying out green. So I think that's pretty cool. Okay, so why big YouTubers such as Rocket Jump are using green screen to apply visual effects? I just don't understand. It's easy. With a green screen, you can practically do anything you want, so why not use it? I mean, green screens, they're probably shooting in front of a fake background. You know, you never know. Green screens allow you to shoot basically wherever you want. However, it's difficult with a green screen to make it seem very realistic. You have to understand, you have to position the subject perfectly, you have to position the camera perfectly. It all has to look real through a person's perspective. So if I'm sitting, let's say if I had a green screen behind me and I had just random chairs, like you would have to make sure that the chairs are proportionate to my body, that I'm proportionate to the chairs, you know, all of that stuff comes into play. So the background, whatever background you're shooting in front of or want to shoot in front of, you have to make sure it's proportionate to the person. Otherwise, people are immediately going to spot that out and they're going to immediately tell you that it's fake. So as long as it's proportionate and as long as the lighting is good, I don't think people will be able to tell you're in front of a green screen. A funny story, one of my clients, Rebecca Black, we did a shoot with her a while ago, last year, I believe in October. She used to shoot, before I came on board, she used to shoot with a little point and shoot camera. And those little point and shoot cameras have very little sensor sizes, so they don't give you that depth of field like a full frame camera. So I started shooting with my cameras with her, and her backgrounds started becoming blurry. You know, you get that blurry depth of field background. And people were commenting on her videos thinking that we were shooting in front of a green screen because it looked fake. So it was really, really funny how people started questioning if we were using a green screen or not, but we weren't. It was just a different camera, blurry background. It was just a different look. So that was an interesting thing, I think. Mustajim Shah Jahan, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Why does Devin Supertramp control the glidecam with the handle on the front? Is this better? It's preference. I know that he holds the handle in the front instead of in the back or on the side. I prefer it on the side, simply because I can keep my elbow tighter into my rib cage. That way you will see less of that up and down movement. He prefers to shoot it in the front, but for me, why that doesn't work is that you might see more of that up and down movement with your elbow. So I like to keep it here in the back and keep my elbow close to my side. That way you won't see any of that up and down momentum. But it's honestly, it's all preference. Maybe he does it because he can fly his glide cam for a lot longer periods of times than having it back here. It's all preference. It doesn't really matter where you position the handle. However, it matters how you hold the handle. That has a lot to do with it. And I just released a video yesterday on how to properly hold your glide cam, so check it out on my YouTube channel. Hi from Algeria. Hello, Algeria. How you doing? Halvin Wolf, how do you deal with competitive photographers or videographers? I don't deal with them. You don't need to compete. Just do your thing. If you're truly better than them, you will get noticed. I'm not scared of competitive photographers or videographers. I'm not. A lot of my friends are my competition, by the way. I have at least 5 or 6 friends who are in photography or videography, and they're competing against me. But the key goal here is to be different. That's the best advice I can give you. People are supposed to look at your videos and know that it's your work and not somebody else's. Like, you can look at any Ridley Scott or Philip Bloom video and you'll know, boom, it's Philip Bloom. Boom, it's Ridley Scott. Boom, that's Steven Spielberg. You know, they brand themselves into their films, and that's exactly what you need to do. That's how you get noticed. People are supposed to know you from seeing your work. And that's the best advice I can give you with that. Man, you are amazing. I've been following you for 5 months now. I think, thanks man, I appreciate it. What do you do when you film for a day when you see the footage is crap? So I don't have that problem anymore since I got a lot better at filmmaking. Thank you, by the way, for the compliment again. But let's say you're a beginner and you film all day. You come home, you dump off all your footage onto your computer, and you see that the footage is overexposed and underexposed and it's shaky. What are you ought to do? What are you ought to do? Post-production, my friend. Obviously, when it comes to post-production, it's very, very limited on how you can restore lighting, how you can fix shakiness. But honestly, each year I see software improving phenomenally. For example, shakiness used to be a huge issue with cameras, and it was very difficult in post-production to get rid of shaky video. But now new technology has come up with this stabilizer called Warp Stabilizer. It's a digital stabilizer for Final Cut Pro, for Premiere Pro, for Sony Vegas, any software. There's Warp Stabilizer. And it warps the edges of your frame, and it compensates that shakiness with that warp. So shakiness has been completely, almost 100% removed. So that's how you get rid of shakiness. However, when it comes down to overexposed footage and underexposed footage, there's not, unfortunately, too much you can do with that. It actually has to rely on how well your camera shoots. That's where dynamic range comes into play. Dynamic range basically is the amount of detail that the camera gets from color. So for example, if I'm shooting with my Sony A7S, shooting an S-Log, which is claimed to get, I think, 14 stops of dynamic range, I can take an underexposed footage and raise it 14 stops in post-production without losing any detail. So that's what dynamic range is. So when it comes to overexposure, underexposure, it really does depend on the camera that you shoot with. But if your camera doesn't have that dynamic range, you're gonna have overexposed footage. There's just not, like this footage, you see the white here over there? I cannot fix that with an iPhone because the iPhone doesn't have that dynamic range. I will not be able to fix this overexposure here in post-production. This is all blown out white. You don't see the beautiful blue sky in the background. You don't see any of that. So that's going to be an issue. It all has to do with the camera that you shoot with. So I strongly recommend that before you start shooting, you set your camera to the right settings. You don't ever rush on a shoot. You rush on a shoot, you're going to make a mistake. I'll tell you that right now. Okay, next one. Next week, I'm going to shoot 3 commercials on 3 different locations. Any tips for commercials? Again, my friend, I can't give you any tips because you're not being, you're being a little too vague with me. Ask me specific questions. I honestly can't answer any tips for commercials. You gotta just tell me. Give me specific questions and I'll answer them. Should I go for the Canon 5D Mark IV or the Sony A99 Mark II? I would say if your budget is around $3,500, which is how much the Canon 5D Mark IV is, I believe, around $3,500, I would wait until Sony releases the A7S Mark III. Mark III. I think that's gonna be the camera that you're gonna want to get. Low light, dynamic range into a small body. All right, guys, let's answer one more question. I got to get running here. Sorry, this is going to be a 20-minute, 22-minute live stream. Sorry about that, guys. I usually go on for an hour, but what are my thoughts on the GH5? I love the GH5. The biggest issue for me is the small sensor. I don't like shooting with a small sensor, like a Micro Four Thirds. I don't like that because of the lack of depth of field and the lack of low light. Have I ever used a Panasonic G7? Never. Never have used it. All right, guys. Well, I am running off to do some more editing. I have to get a project done today. Please, if you can, donate to this chat. I think you can give me a super chat donation. That way I can actually review more gear for you. I know I get a lot of requests each day to review this gear and review this gear. So if you can spare $1, that would be great. Donate, please. I want to keep all my content free for you, so donations really do help. And please check out my website at capturethemomentum.com. Free blog, awesome newsletter there, and I really appreciate your guys' help. Again, the more donations I get, the better. Please share this channel with your friends. Share this live stream. Continue asking questions on this live stream because I will answer the questions on my next live stream. So I document all of these questions that are put here. All right. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon, and I appreciate your support. All right, guys. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.